Greetings. We have been talking about A Course in Miracles a lot on this channel. I mean, I have been talking. You've been listening, I hope, some of you. And I'm getting some comments that people like to hear about A Course in Miracles in light of other traditions and other thinkers. I've talked about Jung and Nietzsche and Freud and Einstein and Schopenhauer, Plato, etc., etc. Teresa of Avila. Today, what I thought we'd do is we look at this Avadhuta Gita. This is from the Hindu tradition, and this is mainly an Advaita text, meaning it's a non-dual scripture. India is known, first of all, Hinduism is not the actual name of the tradition. It's called Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma means the eternal way, or the eternal, you could say, tradition. And Hinduism was a later name that was given. But India is known, first of all, it did not have a founding father, so to speak, or mother. It didn't have one founding figure. It goes back to the Vedas. The Vedas are like you could say the Hebrew Bible of India. It's basically on that same level, and it's the founding scripture of India, the Vedas. And there are four main Vedic texts. And in the Vedas were heard by these rishis. Rishis are seer sages. And there's more than one rishi. There's not only, it wasn't like Moses went on top of Mount Sinai and received the law from God. You know, he fasted and prayed and whatever, meditated, and he received the law from God, and then he brought it to the people. In the Vedas, we have a number of rishis, a number of seer sages who transmitted the teachings of the Vedas. And originally, it was an oral tradition. It was not written down until later. This text today is from, the earliest manuscripts are from the 9th or the 10th century of the Common Era. So it could be older though. And Gita, the word Gita means song. And Avadhuta is oftentimes translated as like a free spirit or a free soul, someone who is liberated while they're in their body, someone who has achieved that state of freedom while still alive in their body. But Avadhuta also has a meaning of like someone who's gone beyond the world and maybe even a little bit eccentric, maybe even a little bit crazy. I also want to mention that there are two epics of India, two epic stories, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. The Mahabharata is the one that contains the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is 18 chapters. It's a very small part of this, like 100,000 verses, is it? So the Bhagavad Gita only has 700 verses. I believe the Mahabharata as a whole, the whole epic, has like 100,000 verses. The Avadhuta Gita is a little bit shorter. It's only 8 chapters, so it's about half the size of the Bhagavad Gita. And I'm just going to read a little bit today, kind of just to kind of broach the subject and whet your appetite a little bit for more if you're interested. Let's talk a little bit more though, just to give some background. So the Bhagavad Gita is the most famous Gita. Gita means song, as I said, but it's also a genre of literature. So there's a number of different Gita texts in the Sanatana Dharma tradition or the Hindu tradition. So we're talking about like the Bhagavad Gita, the Avadhuta Gita, what else Gita? Man, I'm not thinking of other Gitas right now, but there's a bunch of other Gita texts in this genre. Maybe I'll think of some and I'll say it later. But the Bhagavad Gita, is it a non-dual teaching? Some people say yes, some people say no. Some people say it's really pointing to that there's a duality between humans and God, that we are not Krishna, but we are ultimately can be one with Krishna in a sense, but we can never become Krishna, meaning Krishna represents the highest, right? We can never become Krishna, but we can be in Krishna's orbit for eternity, something like that. Whereas the non-dualists would say, well, ultimately you'll go beyond the form of Krishna, and you will get to the formless absolute, or the abstract essence of God, which goes beyond form, which goes beyond bodies, which goes beyond separation. And this is interesting, of course, for people who are studying A Course in Miracles, because we have this same debate in the world of A Course in Miracles as well, is that, there's some people that say, well, even though Jesus keeps talking about oneness and that the Son is one with the Father, but there's still a separation. God is still our Father, and we're the Son. We are created by God. We did not create God. And I think, there's something to be said for that ultimately, even in the ultimate sense, we are still the Son. We are still the offspring in a sense. Like, we are still the created of the Creator, even in the oneness. This is a very interesting point, because Jesus seems to suggest in other places in the Course that there is a merging that happens, where we basically we merge with God, and we become essentially one with God. So let's read a little bit of this. We'll kind of get the flavor of it, and we'll see, if we can say something interesting in relation to A Course in Miracles. So here's chapter 1 of the Avadhuta Gita. I'm just going to read the Sanskrit just so you can hear it, but I'm not going to read it for everyone. I'm just going to read the first one. īśvarānugrahādeva puṁsāmadvaitavāsanā mahadbhayaparitrāṇādviprāṇāmupajāyate. Through the grace of God alone, the desire for non-duality arises in wise men to save them from great fear. I'll read that again. Through the grace of God alone, the desire for non-duality arises in wise men to save them from great fear. This great fear was also mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says it in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, I'm going to tell you about yoga, Arjuna, and this yoga thing is going to save you from great fear. Even a little bit of this yoga saves you from great fear, and the word is mahadbhaya. Mahadbhaya will save you from great fear. All right, I'm not going to read the Sanskrit. I'm just going to read verse 2. How shall I salute the formless being, indivisible, auspicious, and immutable, who fills all this with his self and also fills the self with his self? So how can I salute, how can I even talk about or worship a formless being? How shall I, if this being truly is one and is part of everything, and I am that being myself, who is there to salute who? I'm just saluting myself. Let's go back to the first verse. I didn't really talk about it too much. Through the grace of God alone. This is also talked about in the Course, the grace, right? In lesson 169 of A Course in Miracles. How do I know this? I just remember this now because I've looked at it so many times now. It says, by grace I live. This is lesson 169. By grace I live, by grace I am released. By grace I give, by grace I will release. So by grace, I can experience the truth. Through the grace of God alone, the desire for non-duality arises in wise men. So the desire for non-duality through grace comes to save them from great fear. I think this is very similar to what A Course in Miracles is talking about. The Course is all about working through all of our fear to get back to the love, right? And it usually comes through some kind of grace, right? Some kind of grace comes. We have some kind of experience that leads us to search, to look, and to find. All right, verse 3. The universe composed of the 5 elements. There's 5 elements in Indian and Chinese medicine or Chinese thought, right? There's not just 4. There's also ether or prakasha in Sanskrit, which is the 5th element, the quintessential element, which is beyond the 4 physical elements. It goes starting to go beyond into the subtle, right? So the universe composed of the 5 elements is like water in a mirage. Oh, to whom shall I make obeisance? I who am one and taintless. So taintless, meaning I have no sin, just as the Course is teaching. I have no sin, right? The Son of God is guiltless. The Son of God is free. The universe composed of the 5 elements is like water in a mirage. This is an illusion, right? This is all a vast illusion, as Jesus puts it in the Course. Paragraph 4. All is verily the absolute self. Distinction and non-distinction do not exist. How can I say it exists? It does not exist. I am filled with wonder! Exclamation point. I am filled with wonder. I can't say it exists and I can't say it does not exist. I'm in a state of wonder. I'm in a state of like holy indifference, holy not knowing what it is. And that's the best place to be. because now I'm really open. 5. The essence and the whole of Vedanta is this knowledge, this supreme knowledge, that I am by nature the formless, all-pervasive self. By the way, this is reminiscent of Shankara. Shankara was 8th century, so this might have been influenced by Shankara. Who knows? It might have been written by Shankara. It's attributed to a sage named Dattatreya. The Avadhuta Gita is attributed. By the way, this translation is from the Ramakrishna ashram, and it's Swami Ashokananda did this translation. So Shankara said he was the one who really kind of brought it all together and said, the teachings of the Upanishads are the Vedanta. They're the essence and the end of the Vedas. And the highest understanding is Advaita, right? The non-duality is the highest understanding. So the essence and the whole of Vedanta is this knowledge, right? And the Course talks about knowledge with a capital K, this supreme knowledge with a capital K. And the word in Sanskrit is jnana, and that's where we get the Greek word gnosis, and that's where we get our English word know, is all from that Sanskrit root, jnana, Jnana. This supreme knowledge, that I am by nature the formless, all-pervasive self. That's my nature. That is my true nature. I am without form. I pervade everything. I am everywhere, in everything. 6, there is no doubt that I am that God who is the self of all, pure, indivisible, like the sky, naturally stainless. Meaning I am without sin. I am without guilt. I am without sin. I have no doubt, this guy is saying, whoever's writing this, right, Dattatreya or whoever it was, there is no doubt that I am that God who is the self of all, pure, indivisible, like the sky, naturally stainless. Now, he doesn't try to prove this. He just, he's stating it like a fact. Verse 7, I indeed am immutable, that means unchangeable, and infinite, and of the form of pure intelligence. I do not know how or in relation to whom joy and sorrow exist. I am I am unchanging, I am infinite, and the form of pure intelligence. Shuddha vijnana, pure wisdom, pure intelligence or pure wisdom. I do not know how or in relation to whom joy and sorrow exist. So I am no longer identified with an individual person. I am not a separate self anymore. I am one with the all. So I don't even experience the dualities of life anymore. I have gone beyond. 8, I have no mental activity, good or bad. I have no bodily, so I've gone beyond concepts. I've gone beyond good or bad. I have no bodily function, good or bad. I have no verbal action, good or, well, how's he talking? I have no verbal action, good or bad. I am the nectar of knowledge beyond the senses, pure. So I've gone beyond the senses. I've gone beyond the body. I've gone beyond the mind. And I am the nectar. I've discovered that I am the nectar of jnana, right? Jnanamritam. I am the nectar of jnana. Jnanamritam shuddham atindriyoham. It rhymes. I am the nectar of knowledge. I've gone beyond this world. I've gone beyond the body, the senses, the mind. Number 9, verse 9. The mind indeed is of the form of space. The mind indeed, there's that word. No, it's not there. Okay, the mind indeed is of the form of space. The mind indeed is omnifaced. The mind is the past. The mind is all. But in reality, there is no mind. So this is also, I think, what the Course is getting at. The Course keeps talking about the mind, right? And it's getting us to become more and more right-minded as opposed to wrong-minded, right? The Holy Spirit represents our right-mindedness, where we think, where we let go of judgment and we see with forgiving eyes and we look on everything with love. That is right-mindedness. But that will ultimately take us beyond the mind entirely and back to the pure spirit. The mind is all, but in reality there is no mind, right? So we have to first realize that the mind holds everything. The mind is the author of the illusion, right? We made this illusion. This is what the Course teaches. We made this whole illusion. We made this mirage. We made this dream. And we have to go back in our mind to get to the source of how that happened and how we did that, and then we go beyond the mind entirely. This is the last one I'm going to read for right now. Verse 10, I, the one only, am all this, beyond space and continuous. How can I see the self as visible or hidden? Okay, so I'm beyond space, I'm beyond, it doesn't say time, but I think that's kind of included here. Beyond space and continuous, how can I see the self as visible or hidden? Self with a capital S. How can I see that God is either here or not here, hidden or visible? I don't have these distinctions anymore. I don't have these concepts anymore. I've gone beyond the concepts. I've realized my true self, or the true self. Let's not even say it's not mine. I've realized the self, the self of all. And I've gone beyond these distinctions, which are of the mind, right? These distinctions, this conceptual framework that makes opposites, good and bad, right and wrong, hot and cold, male and female, all the opposites, all the dualities, pain and pleasure, good fortune, bad fortune, all these things are just part of the dualistic system that is of the illusion, right? But I've gone beyond to the non-dual reality, And in that non-dual reality, all these things make no sense. They have no meaning and they have no existence. And this is all, this is all very much in keeping with the Course. It's using different language, different ways of saying the same thing, I would say. Anyway, I hope this was helpful today. This is just like scratching the surface, dipping our toe in the bucket, and hope this was useful a little bit. And see you next time for more. Always feel free to leave a comment, ask a question, suggest something you want me to talk about, and I will do that. And Monday, we're going to do a live stream at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. This is this coming Monday. Thank you.